Hey guys, it's us
Hey.
again.
Today, we're here to talk about a serious subject
Yeah.
on marriage and ministry mayhem. It's a disorder that's not talked about that much. It's a disorder that you don't hear that much about, but millions are suffering from
We
it.
want to help raise awareness.
I personally suffer from S.I.A.D. And I'm ready to give the disorder of S.I.A.D. a face. You want to know what S.I.A.D.
It's
is?
brave. Somebody needs
know.
to.
All right, so now S.I.A.D. Sermon, Illustration, Anxiety Disorder. I have it.
It's real.
It's real. It's a problem. And I know many of you are out there thinking, I wonder if I have this S.I.A.D. So I want to go through some of the
symptoms
that would let you know if you have S.I.A.D. The first one,
help understand.
Yeah. It's fear. Do you have extreme fear or anxiety when you're sitting in that sermon? You can be sitting in that sermon and he can be really preaching the sermon and all of a sudden the anxiety hits you. Oh no, I know something I did this week that will be the perfect illustration for what he's trying to talk about.
I bet it's coming.
And you know it's coming.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there and you're waiting and you start sweating and you're getting nervous and your heart is beating faster because you know the illustration is coming and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
That leads me to the second symptom that a lot of people have: muscle fatigue. These muscles,
I've seen you suffer from
right
that.
here, get so sore.
And I'm here for you.
I know. I sit in church and you plaster the smile while he's telling a very embarrassing story about you from the pulpit, but you keep smiling. Oh yeah. You may be thinking, I'm going to kill him later.
How much was
but
that life
you
insurance
smile
policy?
And you're like, yeah, he's that's right, yeah, he's telling me that. And those muscles can get so tired. And then the last symptom I want to talk about is paranoia. You're paranoid in your everyday life. You live with the paranoia that anything you say, do, look,
especially when
cook, anything
when
that
I get
you
that
do
look like
can be a sermon illustration.
They know I'm filing it back in my head.
You're terrified. You just
or
never
if I pull
know.
my phone out and make a note.
Yes.
Yeah.
You just never know, so you're paranoid. Anytime you do anything, you're looking. Is he around? Did he see me do that? Is that going to be in this illustration?
They forget about the hidden cameras.
I'm convinced that sometimes he does. And so those are some of the symptoms of S.I.A.D. And, you know, I'm not the only one that struggles with S.I.A.D. There are millions out there that do, and it's a disorder people don't like to talk about. And so we've had some letters sent today.
It's kind of personal.
Yes, and they wanted to remain anonymous because, once again, that paranoia, they don't want to be a sermon illustration. It flavors everything. So I want to read.
But we really do want to help give voice to this.
I want to tell you the first time I realized I had S.I.A.D. The first time it became clear to me, we'd taken a family trip, Washington, D.C. We came back, and we're sitting there, and I was getting more and more nervous as the sermon went on. Because as the sermon was going on, I could see it pointing perfectly to something that happened on our trip. And then I felt him winding up. Here comes the story. And he proceeded to tell the story about a huge argument the two of us had that did not make me look particularly good.
I was right for once.
And I plastered on the smile. And I remember back to the trip in Washington, even then feeling the paranoia, thinking, no, he wouldn't use this in the sermon, would he? No,
yeah, he would.
He wouldn't do that.
Speaking
that paranoia
was
there. But sitting there in that pew that Sunday, I realized I have S.I.A.D. So that's when I began my journey of learning to deal with S.I.A.D. This is the brave child that wrote us a letter.
Here's we have 3 letters.
This one is child that wrote, and she has S.I.A.D. Listen to her story. I have S.I.A.D. My dad is the preacher, and I'm scared to sit in church sometimes because I never know when my dad will tell about something I did this past week. This poor child is suffering. Coming to church. And I think you have a letter from
a
deacon, I think.
About that, with the child, just to be honest for a minute, that does almost bring a tear to at least to a glass high. And
I mean, children are suffering from SIAD out there.
Yeah. I mean, so
Poor
again, that's
innocent
why we
children.
want to do this, and and share these letters. And
Some child has spilled their cup of milk this past week, and their father will turn it into a sermon.
It has to be. You can tie that in the book of Ecclesiastes very well.
It's out there.
Yeah, and there's others like you said.
You don't have to be a member of the pastor's family to suffer from SIAD.
No, and well, I have a couple to share. One example, like I said, not of the immediate family, it's from a deacon, and he shared, and I wanted to share it to let you know, like you said, it's not just family. But he writes, it's kind of short and sweet, but he writes the same thing. I have SIAD. My pastor, who I consider also a friend, just a couple of weeks ago, we were working outside the church together, and I saw him watching me, he says, and I knew that what I had just done was going to be talked about Sunday morning. And I was right. And then, not only did he talk about it, he goes on, the preacher actually had pictures.
Oh. Bless his
and
heart.
So, that's an example.
I have seen grown men hiding, doing things around the church just so that the preacher couldn't see them and put it in his sermon. I've seen them hide. I've seen the fear in their eyes when he drives up and he catches them doing something for the church, knowing that they could be in the sermon.
Absolutely. And then here's another. Now, this is a little different, but, SIAD is kind of like a lot of...
It doesn't care who you are.
It doesn't. It's like a lot of disorders. Sometimes it will manifest itself a slightly different way. This isn't quite sermon illustration anxiety disorder, if you were thinking of the classic sense, but it is definitely symptomatic of it. So it would fall under the same classification. This letter is from the music director.
Oh.
And this wasn't an actual sermon illustration, but he was being put on the spot during service. So that's kind of similar stuff. And he said, he says, I have SIAD. Just the other Sunday, my pastor, in the middle of the song service that I thought we were done with, actually, so really towards the end, without any hint of warning, walks up to the stage and says, we're going to do that one again.
Oh.
And so the music team had to reset, and the tech team had to reset. And here I am wondering, can we get this done quick enough? And the anxiety, the paranoia, and the smile.
Gotta call the smile.
And so he says, I feel the pain of the others. I feel this is a version of SIAD also.
So we just wanted to make you aware of this disorder. And when you're sitting in church this Sunday, I want you to look around. If you see those with fear in their eyes and the postured on smile,
you aren't alone.
Or the extreme paranoia of them looking over their shoulder. Did anyone see that? Just know they may have SIAD.
Others are going through this too.
You're not alone. Many of us have SIAD. And we will make it through this. And hopefully it won't be in a sermon.
If you want to talk about it, comments, perfect place. And we'll put you on a prayer list. Talk to you next time. Bye.